What up? What up? What up? Good morning. Good morning. Robin Lundberg show in full effect. Game 5 tonight. I actually don't have too much time this morning, but I figured people were excited. So popping in for a quick edition of the program as everybody gets set for the Fever and Aces tonight from Las Vegas with the season on the line, obviously, for both teams. The Fever looking to continue this improbable run. They are underdogs again. I think it's 7.5 points. They are dogs to the Aces tonight. The Aces looking to get back to another championship series. I still think these are pretty evenly matched teams, all things considered. We'll get to that in a second. But before we get to that, I do want to touch on the coaching front. But, I got loyal listeners in here who are telling me there's some counter programming right now. Diana N says, sorry to miss. CP and AB are having a live at 11 on post moves. Winner, game 5, winner takes all. I didn't know. Oh, well, got to chalk it up to the game. This is earlier than 11, though. I'm starting a little earlier. So you got, you can hang with me for 15 minutes or so before you go over there. Carlos A says, what should Nay be practicing her three-pointers for tonight? Ernesto, good morning, Robin and chat. Joe Lala, if a leader doesn't recognize the problems, even when facing the criticism, the only option is to remove that leader. I've seen this brewing all season. I won't be able to make it to the game tonight. Okay, so that is in reference to what I wanted to start with, which was I think it's fair to say the WNBA has an officiating crisis on its hands. The physicality keeps coming up, and you have coach after coach building a crescendo of criticism. So it's not just one coach complaining after a game. It is Stephanie White. It is Becky Hammon. It is Cheryl Reeve's legendary crash out. So how does Kathy Engelbert respond? Well, they fine everybody who has something to say, which is fine. That's within their rights. But at the same time, is the issue actually being addressed? And Kathy Engelbert at the All-Star game said, there is a faction of the fans who like the fact that the game isn't called as tightly in the WNBA. And I think there is an iota of truth to that, because I don't like the flailing in the NBA where people are just trying to get calls rather than trying to actually score. But there is a line. And as Dave Chappelle once said, habitual line stepper. And in the WNBA, there are many instances of that where it could be the WWE NBA with the level of physicality that is allowed to be perpetrated on the perimeter and elsewhere. It's what led to these big explosive moments, including earlier in the season when Caitlin Clark was hit with the eye poke, shoulder check sandwich that led to Sophie Cunningham becoming a folk hero for standing up for her. But Clark has all this visibility around her, which sort of opened the door to that. And for the longest time, everybody was like, get in the weight room, toughen up. And now people are starting to come aboard with the movement for more freedom of movement. Given it is not just focused on Cece, Kelsey Plum pleaded for consistency at the All-Star game. Becky Hammon has said the game is akin to rugby. Cheryl Reeve said this is the look that the league wants for some reason. Stephanie White has complained on several occasions. So when you have all of the great coaches saying the same thing, it's hard to ignore. And I do think that is one of the priorities for the WNBA in order to get its house in order, is to make sure its top players aren't being grabbed and constantly thrown to the floor. So, that's basically more or less the long and short of it. And, it's not even just them. You go to the college level now, too. Geno Auriemma had something to say. Geno Auriemma had something to say yesterday about the WNBA, and its product. Here was the coach of UConn.
And I've had a lot of NBA people, and a lot of former WNBA players tell me that that what goes on in the WNBA game is way more physical than what happens in an NBA game. Now, you go to NBA games in the playoffs. Well, that's maybe a different story, but I think on a daily basis, I think the WNBA game is not conducive to like great basketball. Okay. I mean, you can spin it any way you want. Well, there's more viewers, there's more that. That's great. That doesn't mean it's a better game just because more people are watching, supposedly. Right? You watched last year's final game between the Liberty and the Lynx. It was a horrendous game. But any way you want to spin it, it was a horrendous game. Two of the two best teams in the league. And what score was 20-20 at halftime or some crazy. People can't get open. People can't cut. The ball handler's getting, whacked every time they move. Listen, you always expect your best player or the other, you always expect your best player to have a rough time. I've been through that and I've complained about it a lot. I just think that the way the game, and I don't blame the officials. Everybody says, these officials are bad. Those officials are good. If we had those officials, it'd be a better game. I don't think it's the people actually officiating the games. I think it's what's either in the rule book or what's accepted as this is the style of play that we want. Because if they didn't want that style of play, they wouldn't have it.
That is a shot across the bow of the commissioner from Geno Auriemma. I mean, clear as day. And it's the same thing, Cheryl Reeve had to say, where she called for a change in leadership at the top of the league. I mean, those are not calm words, but I mean, they're spoken calmly. Those are not, words that fall on deaf ears, considering who we're talking about. So that's where we're at with the situation. Cheryl Reeve fined $15,000 by the league. Stephanie White was fined $1,000, as was Becky Hammon. This was Stephanie White sharing that she was fined yesterday at media availability.
You comfortable with how physical this series has been? And the other series, you seemed even more physical.
Well, I already got fined for supporting Cheryl, so yeah, which I think is crazy. But look, I think there's nothing that we want more than just consistency. That's what I would say.
And consistency is the plea that she's been making all season long. That's what Kelsey Plum said to me at All-Star Weekend as well. We will see how the consistency is brought about or achieved or not achieved tonight, Game 5, and then going forward. But, the leadership of the WNBA is being put into the, into the scope there. And that's the commissioner. It starts with the commissioner. And it has been kind of a badge of honor how physical the league has been. And now we've sort of reached a tipping point. I do find Auriemma's comments a little ironic, considering what he said last year, his infamous ice cold take about Caitlin Clark.
You said the WNBA, they're targeting Caitlin Clark. What do you mean by how she's being guarded or, enforced?
I think you and I both know the landscape that we live in today, both sports-wise and non-sports-wise, right? We are in a red-blue. And if you're red, you can't agree with blue. And if you're blue, you can't agree with red. Whereas most things are in the middle. If you're a college player and you're a great college player, like Caitlin was, the delusional fan base that follows her disrespected the WNBA players by saying she's going to go in that league and tear it apart. There were actually odds on she's third or fourth in betting odds on being MVP at the WNBA. These people are so disrespectful and so unknowledgeable and so stupid that it gives women's basketball a bad name. Okay, so the kid was set up for failure right from the beginning. So if you're a WNBA player, and believe me, I've coached the best, and I've pissed them off a lot, and they let me know about it. But they were tremendously disrespected. And none of them are going to say it. But human nature is, okay, this kid's coming into the league. And Diana said it best. This kid's in for a rude awakening.
So basically, he wasn't talking about the physicality only there, but it's always funny to revisit that. She did finish fourth in MVP, and he talked about her not being physically strong enough to deal with what goes along with the WNBA. So it just feels like the tone of him changed a little bit and his delivery changed a little bit. Maybe now that Paige Beckers is at the league level, and Beckers basically said that she has to learn to play while fouling, which was an illuminating comment, right? Have to learn to play while fouling. Not exactly what you want to hear as far as you know, the way the game goes. But that's the situation. That's I think the story right now, you know, that's the overarching takeaway probably from the semifinal series before we get to the finals and we find out who actually plays. Because look, what Cheryl Reeve did is gonna I think she overreacted, like I said, in the moment to the play in question. I don't think that was a dirty play by Alyssa Thomas. It was arguably not a foul at all. In fact, the NBA referees said it wasn't a foul at all. I don't think that was the play to set the bridge on fire over specifically, but it had been burning already. And, I thought that was mostly a clean steal myself. I've gotten some blowback for that because I think I'm supposed to say it was the other thing. But that's not what I saw. More an unfortunate result of the play. But regardless, it had been brewing and it had sort of been boiling over. So I think Cheryl Reeve seeing her star hurt in the process is what caused her to, put that final straw on that broke the camel's back. And now we're in a situation where I don't think you can put the toothpaste back in the tube. Something has to change with the way the game is officiated. And it's not going to change, by the time the finals come around. But by the time they reach this new CBA and they get into next year, that is when you're going to have to take a long look in the mirror. If you're the commissioner of the league and, you see 2 years basically of this boiling over now. Because it did start, let's be real about it. It started with Caitlin Clark. Not the style of play or not what happened, but the eyeballs on it. And the people that have, came out and complained about that. And it makes sense. It's like a natural reaction to think. And look, I do think whether the word targeted is correct or not, I do think there was extra intention and incentive to trying to shut down Caitlin Clark, right? Like because of the hype, because of everything else. And because what is allowed at the WNBA level has persisted, people could put some extra on the way they went after Cece, defensively and everything else. But it wasn't solely a Caitlin Clark problem. And as you see that unfolding, more and more people are starting to realize that over time. And you see more and more coaches addressing it, where I think it's fair to call it crisis. Because you can't have every coach involved in the, championship chase other than Nate Tibbetts, and you would understand why he wouldn't speak about it, saying the same thing. And nothing changing as a result. So that's kind of my spiel on that at this moment in time. Joe Lala says, sports is entertainment. Entertainment is money. If they are losing money because the stars are injured, they have to make changes. Crank that 22. Winner tonight only has 2 days rest. Crazy schedule. That's another thing is the schedule. I go back to the All-Star weekend schedule. That's the one that threw me into a blender because I was on the same schedule as the players at that time. Not playing basketball, of course, but I traveled to, so I was in New York. If you recall, it was the game Caitlin got hurt was on a Tuesday against the Connecticut Sun. And then they played the next day on a Wednesday at Barclays Center against the Liberty. So back-to-backs. And then they had to go to Indy to host the All-Star weekend. And that was over the weekend. And then the next Tuesday, they play in New York again, which I was back for that game also. So an all-star break is a hilarious term for that. Now, there is the game itself tonight. As far as the Fever and the Aces, I feel like the line is a little bit too far in Vegas's direction. I mean, it does catch me off guard. They're still, I think, 7.5-point favorites entering tonight. That's where it was when I last saw it. Let me check it right now. 7.5 points, which is a pretty sizable favorite. I don't think the Aces are 7.5 points better than the Fever. No matter where you're playing, they could win the game that way. I think these are evenly matched teams because I think they're two teams that are pretty top heavy in what they're relying on. You take Kelsey Mitchell away, the Fever have trouble scoring. Lexi Hull's been tremendous. Aaliyah Boston had her breakout scoring performance. It will be interesting to see how the game is officiated as to whether she can replicate that in this one, I think. But the rest of the Fever, Odyssey Sims is capable of scoring. Shea Petty has shown she's capable of scoring, but these are not players that you can rely upon on a game in and game out basis. Now, on the other side of it, I think the Aces have a similar predicament where it's really Asia Wilson and Jackie Young. I love Jackie Young, one of my favorite players in the league. In fact, if I was building a starting five of WNBA players, she would probably be in it. I'm a big fan of Jackie Young's versatility and her game overall. At the same time, beyond that, the Aces don't have all that much. They don't have all that much in terms of overall talent. They're not stacked. I mean, I know they got a bunch of players who were on the Olympic team, but we got to look at where they're at relative to their career. Chelsea Gray is okay. She's okay at this stage. They're going to need a big game from her, I think. Jewel Lloyd has been pretty brutal all season long. She's hit the three. All three no D from Jewel Lloyd this year. Then, Melissa Smith is a reclamation project, but, not a stalwart defensively, doesn't run the floor all that well, and makes bad decisions with the basketball. I mean, that's just been, that dates back to last year. They start Kirsten Bell, but she barely plays. I mean, she starts and she averages a handful of minutes. So you've got that. Dana Evans has been very good for them in this series, I think, as a counteract to the speed that the Fever have on the perimeter. But I don't think these two teams are too far off of one another. Hence why we're in a game 5. Now, tie goes to the team with home court advantage. But then you could also look at the Fever as kind of like a team of destiny. There's that part of it. However you weigh that in, however you weigh that in, the destiny aspect of it, that plays in to the outcome as well. I mean, that could mean nothing, right? It could mean nothing. But there is that feeling of what the Fever could be able to accomplish. I mean, I think I wouldn't say it's a toss-up, but given that the Aces are at home on paper, but 7.5 points feels like a lot. John says 7.5 now because Asia gets her whistle. I mean, look, Asia Wilson relies a lot on mid-range and getting to the foul line. Those aspects are a big part of her game. We will see how they manifest themselves in the game tonight. I think the Aces would wish for Plum now. I mean, yeah, that would If the Aces had Kelsey, it's the same thing as like, it's funny because you see this play out in real time with these teams, right? Like, obviously the Fever don't have Caitlin Clark. So the quick narrative spin is, look, the Fever, look what they're doing without Caitlin Clark. But what would they be doing with Caitlin Clark? And I think like with Caitlin Clark, they'd be running through everybody, right? I mean, I think they'd be the 7.5, 8.5 point favorites against basically anybody if they had Caitlin Clark. And to the same token, the Aces have been able to get on the precipice of the finals without Kelsey Plum. But if they had Kelsey Plum, I mean, what a difference that would make. What a difference that would make. All of a sudden, then you tip the scales completely in the favor of Vegas, I would say. So that's the way I look at it. I mean, the whistle will play into it. Who shoots better from the perimeter will play into it. Once you get to a fifth game in a series, is there that much that's going to change from what you've already seen? Probably not. Probably not. And therefore, we are where we are in the grand scheme of the season. And the season is on the line for both the Fever and for both the Aces. So I just wanted to hop on for a few minutes and say hello, get your thoughts, and get your reactions. You can get your predictions in real quick. Let me know what you think, who you got in tonight's Do or Die Game 5. Please like and subscribe, of course, as well while you're here. Get your comments in, and we will see whether the Fever season continues and they continue this fight, or it improbably ends. Or no, not improbably ends. The improbable fight. I meant that for the other part of it. You know what I'm saying. Or if it finally comes to an end. But I mean, I think, the Fever have the heart. That's for sure. You can't question their heart. Kentucky Rick, the Fever are playing house money. Even if they lose, they win because they shouldn't even be in the playoffs with the hardship misfits. I agree with that too. I mean, I think it's appropriate analogy for playing in Vegas too. They are playing with house money. A lot of people saying that the Fever don't play well in night games. Just a kid from Brooklyn, Odyssey Sims, and Natasha Howard are the X Factor. If they step up, the Fever win. Well, yeah. I mean, look, it's basically Kelsey Mitchell, Lexi Hull. It's like Kelsey Mitchell creating Aaliyah Boston on the block and Lexi Hull threes. That's basically the Fever's most reliable offense. The rest of it comes and goes. But the same thing, like I said, for the Aces. The Aces, it's not like, who are you scared of beyond Asia and Jackie Young? I don't think anybody. I see there's also fans upset that DeWanna Bonner has made the finals, which I get. I mean, that would be the story. Like, the storyline sets up for the Fever against the Mercury, of course. But that's not always the way it works. So we shall see. 9:30 tonight, ESPN, right? Yep. Series tied 2-2. A trip to the WNBA finals on the line. Get your predictions in. Get your comments in. Member chats, super chats. Get them in real fast right now. Exactly. Put your money on the core 3 and Sims, though. WB Brown says 7.5 will never come into play. The Fever will win outright or lose by 15. Possible. I mean, again, like, I thought the Fever were done after Friday. I did, if I'm being real with you. And they got up again. They dusted themselves off again. And here they are. living to fight another day or another game. Stephanie White, by the way, for all no matter what happens, there was like a whole, like a lot of people who are doing like the YouTube thing that I'm doing, made a proverbial living off of crushing Stephanie White after every game, no matter what, it was her fault. And did any of them take that back? I don't know. I'd have to go check. Have they because you do that over an entire season and then she gets the team one game from the finals. I mean, come on. This is a good comment from Ben, too. I think that's kind of the takeaway, regardless of the result tonight. Nothing but excitement for the future of the Fever. And the Fever are in a position for a truly dynastic run here. They have the ability to be a dynasty, given their core. I mean, when you have, that's assuming Kelsey Mitchell resigns in the offseason. Lexi Hull, Kelsey Mitchell, Aaliyah Boston, Caitlin Clark, and whatever they decide to put around them. You would think Sophie Cunningham's probably coming back, but there will be turnover in everybody's roster going into next year. But if they're able to do this without CC, what can they do when she is back on the floor? And Sophie essentially back on the floor. And remember what Ari McDonald did for this team as well. That's the crazy thing about it. When you break it down to just like without Caitlin Clark. Yeah, it is without Caitlin Clark, but it's also without Sophie Cunningham, also without Ari McDonald, also without Damaris Dantas, who, didn't play a big role for the Fever, but was in the damn rotation. Also without Sydney Colson, who was in the rotation. You go down and down the line. And there's so many players out for the Chloe Bibby, who they brought in the midst of the season. It truly is remarkable that they're in this position. This team has brought me more joy than any other sports team I follow. These women are amazing. Yeah. I mean, again, win or lose. I don't think there's any result. Even if the Fever lose by 100 tonight, I don't think there's any result that could sully their season. They can only add to it. They can only add to it. All right. A couple more minutes for comments, guys. Any member chats, super chats, get them in. Likes, hit the thumbs up button, por favor. And yeah, the DB aspect, you forget that DeWanna Bonner was even on the team. Feels like 3 years ago at this point in time. So much has happened. I mean, it has been an exhausting season in certain ways too. I mean, they must be feeling it too, which is part of the admiration you have to have for where they've got. It's an interesting sidetrack question from Tulip Plays. Thoughts on a Saudi WrestleMania? Sorry for the curveball, but just answering the question. And I mean, look, I feel like corporate greed is a common theme nowadays in almost everything, right? It's everywhere where people see, these companies are out to make money, and clearly the Saudi is paying at a premium. I don't see it as like such a shock or anything, because the WWE has been in Saudi for many, many years, held PLEs in Saudi for many, many years. So I feel like it was kind of inevitable that it would turn out that way. I got to get more content up on the Ring Rascals channel, but that is out there too. You can go check that out. And then we will see. We will see what happens tonight. Aces, Fever, Game 5, winner take all. And then winner faces the Mercury. The Aces would have home court against Phoenix, right? Yeah. The Fever would be on the road in Phoenix. The schedule comes together fast. Hello from Greece. What up? I got you. A live stream game next season when CC is back. I don't know what this means. My channel is okay with diverse content. What do you mean? I mean, you got to diversify your portfolio, like the Wu-Tang Clan would tell you. But 9:30 is just a stupid game time. They're trying not to get watched. Well, it's on the West Coast. I mean, that's actually early for a West Coast game. One thing is for sure, the WNBA has been full of surprises. That's true, too. Well, we'll see if the Indiana Fever have one more surprise in store. It remains to be seen. It remains to be seen. But that will send us off. Kentucky Rick saying go Fever. I'm sure that's the sentiment shared by many of y'all. That'll do it for me today, guys. Talk to you tomorrow morning after the game, of course. And until then, eat